from the Crypt.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Welcome to episode 40 of Dads From The Crypt, a Tales From The Crypt podcast. My name is Jason. I am joined by Jody.
Hello.
And Mondo.
Hello.
In addition, we have Eric and Anthony from the Frankencast. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Hey.
Thanks so much for having us. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad we could finally make this work.
Yeah, we're really excited.
So why don't you start off and tell us about Frankencast?
So we've been doing Frankencast since like October, and we just every week we watch a different Frankenstein movie or Frankenstein adjacent movie. Right now we're doing like the Reanimator movies, so it doesn't have to be like specifically Frankenstein exactly, but we kind of have a similar format to what you guys are doing. We just kind of talk about what we see in the movie, kind of look at it critically a little bit, have fun, tell some jokes. It's a really good time.
Yeah, as long as there's basically a through line from some like reasonable grasp to Frankenstein, we're there.
Yeah,
love it. Nice.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah, no, I've listened to a good handful, and I even watched a couple. They put a couple of the older Frankenstein movies on Shudder, like a month or two ago. So I watched I think it's House of Frankenstein. I hadn't seen. I think I probably saw it as a kid or something. And it's not one, so I could listen to your podcast. But it's great. I mean, it sucks that you run out of movies of those old Universal ones and the old Hammer ones, but it's a classic tale that it always finds another version of.
You'll be surprised. There's always more Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I keep we started with a list of about 200, and I think I have like 250 or 275 now. Like I just keep finding them.
Wow, that's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's cool. So everyone check that out. If you're old or new Frankenstein fan, I introduced them to my son when he was about 15. And the fact that they were short definitely helped with his attention span, for how slow some of them are.
Well, I have a quick question. If you're going to show someone everyone knows who Frankenstein is, right? Or Frankenstein's monster is. Everybody knows the basic story. But if you're going to introduce someone to a movie, what movie would it be? If you're going to show them, like, man, I've never seen a Frankenstein movie. Oh, what's the first one you're going to show me?
Oh man, you've just asked us our favorite kids.
This might be kind of like a left field answer, but I think I might say Young Frankenstein. Actually,
I was thinking about that too as an answer.
It has all the elements of the classics, and it has like horror elements, but it's also really fun. So I think it would kind of draw anybody in, no matter what what you're looking for.
It's the perfect Frankenstein cosmoverse in and of
I like that.
Yeah, because it pulls in elements from all those the original 3 or 4, but it's funny on a level that you don't need to know the movie specifically to laugh at, and then it'll make you want to go seek out those.
Yep. Yeah. Nice. If someone doesn't like Young Frankenstein, it's probably not someone I want to be friends with. So that's a good litmus test too for friendship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of movies I can disagree with people on, but that's not one of them.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, did you like Young Frankenstein? No. Blocked. Done. We're done.
Well, I feel like you have no soul, or you're like an evil entity in and of yourself.
Right. I'm even okay if you say, I didn't love it, but I liked a lot of parts of it. Yeah. We can get along. But if you can say you didn't like it, we're done.
Yeah.
If you can't even get a smile of putting on the Ritz, I mean.
Yeah. All right. So let's modify. Let's take out that one, because that or for like someone that wants to look at it from more like a real intellectual horror fan, which one would you put in their hands first?
Intellectual horror fan.
Not intellectual, but if I was gonna get a kid, that would be a good way to go. But if you want to throw someone into one,
intellectual is a word we don't throw around much here on this podcast.
We don't talk smart too much.
Nope.
We don't brain much.
Yeah, brains. Yeah. So where would you go with that?
I mean, obviously the classic Boris Karloff one, you can't go wrong with that. More recently, I've kind of really gotten a soft spot for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the Kenneth Branagh one. We just did that one a couple of weeks ago, and I did not remember liking it as much as I enjoyed it this time around.
It was pretty good. It got a lot of hate when it first came out, but it was pretty good. No, I think I would go with either Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or The Curse of Frankenstein.
Cool. Very cool.
Nice.
Got to go Hammer.
Yeah, I haven't seen that Branagh one in forever, so maybe I need to rewatch it too. Like I remember going those phases of I liked it at first, and as I got a little bit older, I watched it again, didn't like it, but then that was my edgy years. So now like maybe I'll dig it again.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the cycle with horror movies though, right? Like it comes out, everyone hates it, and then like 10, 20 years later, it was like, oh yeah, that was actually pretty good.
I think we mentioned Season of the Witch earlier.
Yes. Witch.
Yeah.
Mondo and I are both big fans of the Blair Witch 2, you know.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Love Blair Witch too. But I'll be honest, I liked that like the day it came out. I saw it in the theater when it came out. I loved it. So
Yeah.
Nice. And then getting more into our wheelhouse, I'm assuming you guys are fans of Tales from the Crypt. So how did you guys get into that? Or when?
Go first, Eric.
Okay, you want me to go first?
How,
Fair
when,
enough.
where, why?
So I was always like, I didn't really have cable growing up, and so we did have Fox, right?
Mhm.
And there was Freddy's Nightmares was a big thing in my household. I think Friday nights, me and my cousins would sit around and watch Freddy's Nightmares because that's what normal kids do, right?
And it's what I would have done.
Yeah.
same here.
Yeah. So, but then, then Tales from the Crypt came out, and I was like, oh, here's more of that stuff I like, and I just gravitated towards that when it came out on Fox.
When it came on Fox, yeah. I find it's interesting. Like a lot of people our age did the syndication route.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I never had cable when I was a kid.
Yeah, I never had cable
That's
either.
definitely where I was exposed.
Yep.
And what about you, Anthony?
Yeah, it was kind of similar. Like, yeah, we never had HBO, and it was kind of like I feel like I knew about the Crypt Keeper before I knew anything about the show. Like he kind of, was like a sort of cultural icon that was just like in commercials and stuff like that. And I was just like a monster kid, and I was like, I don't know anything about what this guy's from, but I want to know more.
I'm
And
in.
Mhm.
I think the first time that I saw stuff, it was actually the Tales from the Crypt Keeper, the animated series.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I loved that when I was a kid. And then, I found the actual show, a few years after that, and was instantly hooked.
Can I sidetrack us a little bit because
Oh,
of
go
what Anthony just
for
said?
it.
Not on this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
We're all about being sidetracked.
Do you all remember that like gut style Tales from the Crypt game show that was on Saturday mornings?
No,
No, I vaguely remember like seeing stuff way after the fact, but not when it was on.
Yeah, so it was like they would kind of play video games while the Crypt Keeper was the secondary host. I'm just saying you should check it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm Googling already.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Secrets of the Crypt here. Yeah, I need to see this.
Okay. I was about to say, is this a fever dream that I had? I'm building. I love it.
There's actually a Kotaku article from the year 2020 about it. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty stoked to look into this. Oh my god, I'm watching a GIF of it right now, and I'm sold.
Secrets of the Crypt Keeper's haunted house. Hell yeah.
That's amazing.
Some guys running around and dodging bananas. So yeah, this is gotta be good.
So what's
It's wild.
I think that's one of the fun things about growing up in the pre-internet age is there's these things I have vague memories of that I cannot play. Like I know they existed, but I have no idea what they were. Like I've looked for one cartoon for probably 15 years and finally figured out what it was. I'm like, okay.
Fair.
But yeah, you don't do that now. You just Google it like immediately. You don't have those fever dream memories.
You mentioned Freddy's Nightmares. Has anybody revisited Freddy's Nightmares on Screenbox?
I haven't yet. I intend to.
All right. All I'm gonna say is I was so excited for it to come out. I paid the $4.99 or no, I paid for a year, which is like $30 for a year of Screenbox.
Mhm.
And man, it does not hold up. Like I don't know what I was thinking when I watched it, but I watched the first episode, which is the origin story, and holy shit, is it bad? It is so bad.
Yeah. But that's something that dumb kids like get interested in. Like,
Oh no, I remember watching as a kid and loving it.
Yeah,
It was
love
like the
it.
best thing ever. But
Brad Pitt got a start in Freddy's Nightmares. Just saying.
oh really? I didn't know.
I didn't know that.
I know he's coming up. I think in season 4 of Tales. But yeah, I didn't know he got a start of Freddy's Nightmares. That's pretty cool.
I think that was one of his first gigs.
Yeah, a lot. We get asked often, like, what we're gonna do when we're done with Tales from the Crypt, and people are like, "Oh, for these nightmares and all these other anthologies." But like the thing is, Tales from the Crypt is kind of the pinnacle.
Good one.
of anthology horror TV. So to go to any of those is just like that's just going to be a real big dip in quality. And
The Crypt Keeper is eternal.
Yes.
yeah, well, not it's and beyond the Crypt Keeper, the actual quality of the show is a lot better than a lot of those other ones. So we'll see where we go.
I mean, not to get too far ahead, but this episode alone was higher quality than some major theatrical productions. Like, I was actually blown away.
Yes. Okay. So let's take a quick moment for some business. In case you haven't heard, we now have a YouTube channel where you can watch us, our Zoom stream that we post. We're still catching up on old episodes. We only have recordings from the last couple months. So, but we'll start posting the new episodes a couple days after the podcast comes out on our YouTube channel. You can just go search on YouTube for Dads From The Crypt. With that,
never wanted to see our faces.
Yes.
That's your opportunity.
If you want to see the awkward smiles or laughs or weird responses to things that Mondo says.
Yeah, if the moments on the podcast that are just silence are the moments that Jason and I are either just shaking our heads or laughing so hard we can't make sounds. So you get to see that.
There's one episode where something must have happened because right as I'm doing my intro, you and Mondo, Johnny and Mondo, are like giggling to themselves about something. And I can't figure out what it is. It's driving me a little nuts. It must have been something I said.
We're giggly guys, you know.
Yeah,
that we giggle a lot.
You can watch the beards in action.
Yes, sad to say. And the best part about it is we never intended to post those originally, so we are not trying to like not make stupid faces or hide anything we're doing. So it'll be interesting, to say the least.
Yes,
I'm kind of mortified.
Yes, so it always helps us out to get the channel out, to like and subscribe, yada yada yada. You guys know the drill by now. Speaking of which, let's move on to our discussion. Tonight we will be talking about Tales from the Crypt season finale, episode 3, season finale, Yellow, which premiered on August 28th, 1991. Jody, give us a plot synopsis.
All right, so I missed last week, and I get to come back on the 45-minute long episode to do the plot synopsis.
To be fair, I think there's less plot in this than
it's really not as bad as
it's actually very, very simple, but just well done.
I'm so happy you're back, by the way. Very happy you're back.
Okay, so we start off with a little From Here to Eternity joke that I appreciated. That's a World War II movie, so we get that. And then we get the Crypt Keeper in a doughboy costume from World War I firing a gun. So we are definitely in military territory. That's a hard thing to say. As we go into our episode. And you from the very beginning, you know that this is not a typical episode, because instead of some kind of like creepy setting, we have this patch of dirt with one yellow flower growing out of the patch of dirt through the entire opening credits. Like somebody's being artistic when they start this off. And then from that, we immediately go into this full-fledged World War I battle scene that we get informed this 1918. It's the 49th day of consecutive battle somewhere in France. And this opening scene is like the beginning of Saving Private Ryan. It's like the Normandy scene on a TV budget. Like people are being shot, people are flying through the air, there's blood and guts. It is super impressive, like really incredible work for TV at the time, especially. And in the midst of all this chaos, a man named Sergeant Ripper is looking for Lieutenant Calthrob, but everybody he goes to ask is dead or gets shot immediately after being asked. So he's having trouble fighting him. Finally finds him in the trenches, kind of hiding and drinking. And at that point, the lieutenant orders a retreat, and that's against the general's orders, but he is the lieutenant, and so they follow the orders and they retreat. Then we meet the general, General Calthrob. Notice the same last name. We're dealing with Lieutenant Calthrob's father. He's meeting with a captain named Captain Milligan, asking what's going on. And he said, I'm sure we've gotten through by now. And then Ripper comes in and reports that they had to retreat based on these orders. And the general said they have to keep fighting. And he tries to call one of the other units. And he can't get a hold of them because the lines have some kind of problem with them. Remember, back in World War I, they literally had to run physical lines from place to place. And so the lines have been cut. And he says to tell Lieutenant Calthrob, his son, to fix the lines But the captain says, maybe we shouldn't send him. I said, well, why not? Well, it's because he's yellow. He's a coward. And the lieutenant says, you know, I don't believe this about my son. Let's bring him in here. And or the general says that. And the lieutenant comes in and says, you know, I saved those men's lives today. And he said, I can't kill anyone. I want to be discharged from the army. And this is an army family. General will not discharge him, but he will make a deal with him. If he will lead a platoon to come out and repair the line, then he will transfer him to the rear, away from the front line, if they can fix this. And so we go to that scene of them trying to fix the line. They find a break in the line. There's Germans everywhere. And Lieutenant Calthrop gives the order to move out. And so they crawl towards that break in the line. When they get close, they kind of are down in a crater where a bomb had gone off. And Lieutenant Calthrop tries to go back. He says, too close to the German lines. He kind of has a little panic attack. And Ripper says, no, you stay in the hole. I'm going to give you this whistle. And if you see any Germans, blow the whistle to alert us that they're coming. And he does. He sees some Germans sneaking up on the men, but he's too scared to blow the whistle because he's afraid it's going to give away his position. And so there's a firefight. Sergeant Ripper is just like blown up out of where he is, all the way back to where Lieutenant Calthrop is. And he calls him a coward for not blowing the whistle. Lieutenant Calthrop runs away. He's like having a complete meltdown. He goes to the general and says he really fought hard against the Germans. They were ambushed, but he barely made it back alive. The general says, you know, this is why I sent you on this, though. Like, even though you didn't succeed, you proved your bravery. And now all the men know, too, that you're not a coward. That's when Sergeant Ripper stumbles into the room. He's not dead. And he calls Lieutenant Calthrop a coward. He says that he left them there to die. He gave up his own men to the Germans. And then Sergeant Ripper dies. Lieutenant Calthrop tries to defend himself. He says that Ripper's either lying or delirious, but the general examines his pistol and sees that it's never actually been fired. He orders Lieutenant Calthrop to be arrested, and there will be a court-martial in 1 hour in a nearby church. We see the end of the court-martial. The verdict comes back as guilty of dereliction of duty, desertion under fire, and cowardice. And the general sentences Lieutenant Calthrop to death by firing squad at sunrise, his own son. He says to his son that you're a disgrace to the uniform, and Lieutenant Calthrop said, I never wanted to wear it. The captain tries to get the general to reconsider, but he won't have cowards in his army. So then we have kind of this nice scene between the general and the lieutenant, where he goes to visit him in his cell. They took his shoelaces and his belt, he said, but they didn't have to do that because the whole reason I'm here right now is because I am afraid to die. I can't commit suicide. And he said, everything that I've done has been to get your approval, but I've just wasted my life because I could never get your approval. I never wanted to be in the military. I never wanted to go to military academy, but I did it for you. And we see now at this point, as the general talks, really the lieutenant's biggest crime is that he's embarrassed his father by being a coward. It's not so much what he's done or who died, it's that the general is embarrassed about it. And the general does have kind of a little moment of tenderness with his son. He apologizes for forcing him into this, but then he says, you're not actually going to die. He said, you know how there's always one blank in the rifle, and that's a real thing, or at least it used to be. They put a blank in so that the men who shot the guy wouldn't know who actually shot him. They at least had plausible deniability that they did it, because that one blank would go off and you wouldn't have to feel guilt for shooting him because you could just convince yourself you had the blank. So there's always one blank, but I'm the one who loads the rifles. I'm going to load them all blanks. And when they shoot, pretend to be dead. Don't move. I'm going to leave you some documents and then you can leave. We're going to pull out, just lay there, be very still. And then you can get these documents, start a new life under a new name and new identity with them. So just one favor, face this like a man. So that morning, the general loads the weapons. You got all the military's lined up. You got the drummer doing the drums. And Lieutenant Calthrop walks out with a smile on his face. It looks like a nice day to die, Father. He confidently walks to his place and he looks down and sees all the bodies below, but he also sees the bag that the general said he'd leave for him. He's offered a cigarette. He refuses and takes a drink instead. He also refuses a blindfold. When he's given a chance to speak, he apologizes for what happened and he salutes. And then he says he's ready. The men line up with their guns. We get the ready, aim. And at that moment, the general briefly just kind of puts his eyes away. He won't look at his son. And Lieutenant Calthrop realizes at that second he's been lied to. And then they say fire. Shot by a whole bunch of bullets, falls down in the hole. They shoot him right out of his shoes, which is kind of a weird moment of comedy in this pretty serious scene. Shoes are left behind, but he falls in the pit where he dies. And the captain comes up to him and says, I have to say, he died like a man. And the general said, yes, my son is not yellow. And then it ends with the crypt keeper tied to a tree using some kind of automated firing squad to shoot himself. So weird moments of comedy all around.
Oh, you still Tales from the Crypt.
Oh yeah.
I love the crypt keeper. The crypt keeper also has a engineering degree.
Mhm. He's like Jigsaw. He's got a degree in everything.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to start us off with some background before we dive into it. So the first two Tales from the Crypt were very successful. However, they went way over budget. I think we have that level of talent behind a lot of things. It's hard to tell them no when they say they want certain things. So after season 2, they said, okay, we'll do one more season. We're going to fire the whole production staff, bring in these new guys who worked on other shows like Freddy's Nightmares and Tales from the Dark Side. And we're gonna ring things in, and we'll do one more season, and then we'll go out with a bang with this big episode. So this was meant to be the Tales from the Crypt series finale. But then once the third season started going underway, they proved that they could come in under budget with, Gil Adler leading as producer, and Alan Katz was brought in to help out as well. So at some point in the season, they were debating, they already budgeted for this episode, which is a double episode, essentially, as far as length goes. So I think there was a debate whether they should use this for a spin-off series. Was it Two-Fisted Tales?
Mm-hmm. Two-Fisted Tales.
Yeah.
That was another EC comic.
Which is another EC comic. So they kind of were trying to decide whether they want to make another anthology series and use this episode for that, or to leave this in as the official Tales. Eventually, they decided to forego the Two-Fisted Tales and have this be the season 3 finale, but go forward with a 4th season because they proved they could have a show that was this to keep the show popular and under budget. So why kill off the golden goose? So that's a little bit of production, but also we just need to talk about right off the bat that the two main leads are actually played by father and son. The general played by Kirk Douglas, who's like Hollywood legend, especially at this time, and his son Eric Douglas, who's his youngest son. I think stepbrother of Michael Douglas and a couple other Douglases. And it's interesting. It's the real life dynamic here is probably what makes this even more dramatic, is that you have the youngest son of a very well-known, very successful family, and he's always, and this is, I read some interviews with him, he acknowledges that he's always been kind of the black sheep, the one that could never live up to his brothers and his father. And very sadly, Eric Douglas, had a very big drug problem and died due to complications of such at the age of 47. And his father took him to over 20 rehab places and couldn't get him sober. So it adds an extra level of tragedy to was already on paper in the original comic, a tragic story. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I feel like before we even started discussion, those are the kind of the groundwork that we're playing with. But let's punch it over to our guests to talk about this episode, what they thought, what they liked, what worked, what didn't work. So Eric, why don't you start us off?
Oh boy. All right. Buckle up. No, yeah. So I was thinking about what was going on at this time, right? And I'm like, to a degree, I'm like, is this particular episode kind of propaganda going on at the time, maybe? Because this released August of 91.
91,
yeah, the Gulf War just ended in February. So like I get that, obviously this was kind of their big thing to go out on. Are they sending a message? And it's like, obviously what happened to Lieutenant Calthrop, I definitely empathize with him, because he didn't want to be there. There was no reason for him to be there. You know, if his dad had listened to the actual statements that the son had made, this wouldn't have been a story, obviously. So, you know, but, you know, I empathize like that. And I kind of go into my roads to see, you know, what's the reasoning behind everything that was written. The story was originally released in Two-Fisted Tales, the comic, in what, 51? 50?
It was Shock
52.
Suspense Stories.
Suspense
It came
Stories.
out first, yeah, in 51.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, so I mean, we're just a few years after World War II. So that makes, you know, they're trying to reinforce the masculine ideal at that point. And, you know, I understand the reasoning behind the original story. But it's like, man, I don't, you know, I guess after living through all the stuff I've lived through, it's like, you know, I'm very cynical and I'm skeptical about everything that's being said. So that's kind of my take. And also I was like, this is a little bit in bad taste when he got shot out of his boots.
that was a weird moment.
Definitely, yeah.
I thought it was kind of funny because they took away his shoelaces. So it's
Yeah,
kind
I
of a callback.
It was darkly comedic, and I was like, yeah. And I was like, really? This was kind of a poignant thing. I mean, all right, whatever. Yeah.
All
That's
right,
kind of my read on it.
Anthony.
So yeah, it's tough to, like, there's parts of this that feel like, you know, he was saying, like, as far as war stuff, is it like, I could kind of read it more as like being an anti-war story than a pro-war story. And one thing, like with Kirk Douglas and this being like a World War I, you know, France era story, like the first thing I thought of was Paths of Glory,
Right.
Yeah.
which I hadn't seen in a while, and kind of I rewatched it right after watching this episode.
Oh, really?
And it's weird how many parallels there are between the two. Like the story is very, very similar. But Kirk Douglas kind of sort of plays Eric Douglas's role in Paths of Glory. But he doesn't get put to death, but several of his men do. And he's kind of trying to defend them. But it's the same thing with, like, they're having to take this hill that's really an impossible catch, and they retreat, and the higher ups are mad, so they feel like they need to punish somebody to, you know, send the message to the men and everything like that. So it's really interesting. Like, I don't, you know, you were talking about like the flower at the beginning and it being very like artistic, and I wonder how much of this was like a little bit of a nod to Stanley Kubrick as well.
Yeah, I feel like it was, right? I mean,
Yeah. No, I feel like
whether
there's a lot you can't not.
Right.
I'm trying to look up when the original, because I'm curious, because I'm trying to look up Paths of Glory is based off a book. I'm trying to figure out when the book came out, because there's Paths of Glory.
That's
And then-
1957 was the movie.
Okay, because so that came out. So the movie was 1957. One was the book, because you have a book, then you have the comic, which came out in 51, and then you have the movie that came out afterwards. So which influenced which? And then you have the
Interesting.
and then you have this episode, which is kind of a meshing of all those.
chicken and the egg situation. Gotcha.
I mean, again, I'm sure these were common tales that were being told around that time.
Sure.
Because it was a very horrific war. Yeah. All right. Mondo, what do you think of this episode?
You know, Jason, I really wanted to just crap on it because I know you love it so much, just to give you grief, but this is such a good episode.
Yeah.
And one thing interesting on it, it's probably what I really I think is cool about it. It's probably one of the least like schlocky horror-y episodes, I guess.
Mhm.
But it's the horror of war that stands out, right?
Mhm.
That you really feel for the lieutenant, that he just doesn't want to be there, like because as they say, you know, war is hell, and he had no interest in being there. And the whole firefight scene at the beginning was just super intense, and it starts off with that body flying, and you see bodies flying, and you know, and I started doing a little bit of research just on the wars, and in World War I, 9 million people died, which is insane. But then in World War II, 70 to 85 million people died. It's like, holy crap, why are we so good at figuring out ways to kill our fellow human beings? And and you know, and especially what's going on in real life right now, it's is kind of poignant there. But I absolutely love this episode. All the acting, it was fantastic. The effects, again, great. I love when Lance Henriksen walks in and takes that hat.
Yes.
One thing I thought was funny though is he obviously was not that far ahead of Sergeant Ripper. but he pretended like he didn't make it. Like the guy's like 8 feet behind you. How'd you not know he was still coming behind you?
Because he was yelling all kinds of things at him as he was chasing.
Oh yeah,
You son of a bitch.
yeah. And even at the beginning, it's kind of hit me hard when Sergeant Ripper is refusing to retreat when Dan Aykroyd's character's like, no, we have to pull back, we have to pull back, we have to pull back. And obviously then you get all the way to the very end with the all that guy cared about. He didn't care about his son's life. He didn't care about his son dying. He just cared about his about what people thought about him because of his son.
Yep.
And that's one of the most toxic traits of being a parent or being a human, is when you're willing to sacrifice your flesh and blood. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but all 3 of us are dads here, and I could never, ever do that. If I was in the military and my child's like, I want to be out, I'm like, yeah, let's get you the fuck out. Like, I would be like, why are you here to begin with? And it reminds me of my grandfather was in the army, and my grandfather was my idol, and I wanted to always be like my grandfather. And I always said, I want to join the army. My grandfather's like, no, you're not joining the army, because he had been through World War II, he'd been through the Korean War, he'd seen some shit. And he's like, that is no place for my flesh and blood. So that was just a very kind of a little heartbreaking about how he was willing to sacrifice his son to save his own reputation. And that kind of sucks. that really sucks. like, man, come on. So, but I will say this ended up being one of my top tier Tales From The Crypt episode, because it's so good, and the production was great. Everything about it was great. And I would say we joke a lot and say, you don't have to watch this episode. No, everyone should watch this episode.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I do like the fact that the horror in this is something that probably happened, at least to a
right.
degree.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there are tales of World War I. There were literally officers behind the soldiers holding guns up to their heads, like, if you retreat, I'm gonna shoot you.
Yeah, and I was reading about it, and cowardice was a big deal in World War I, and they actually changed some of the rules around engagement based on it, because so many people, they said, were just killed without trials.
Yeah.
It was 100% considered okay to friendly fire kill one of your platoon mates or whatever if you felt they were cowards, and you'd go back to your general or whatever and be like, oh yeah, I had to kill Jim because he was a coward. They'd be like, yeah, that sucks to be Jim.
That's one thing logistically I was wondering, is like, it seemed really schlocky that they would have this tribunal really immediately, and that the punishment would be death. But
yeah, I read into it. They did it all the time.
Wow.
And in all honesty, like, that was one of the big criticisms of it, was they often said that these trials were just fake trials. And I think of it much like the witch trials, where it was, if you're guilty no matter what. Like, if you're accused, you're basically guilty. And it happened all the time with quick executions.
Right. Jody, what did you think of this episode?
Yeah, I'm right here. This is a fantastic episode. Production wise, like, you can tell they had the budget this time. They had the talent behind it. Some of the acting between the leads, just kind of the subtle things they do and the facial expressions, like, these are people who know what they're doing. But it's
a father and son having pretty much a conversation I think they might have had in real life,
right,
about living up to
absolutely.
expectations and pride.
Yeah, growing up in your father's shadow is no easy thing for anybody, and both the character and the real life actor, I think, were dealing with the same thing. So they brought a lot of reality to it. I will say though, so you definitely do have the horror of war as a big thing in this, but I think that's not the real horror of this episode. And I'm going to sound like, I've been on TikTok too much with all the young guys, but I think the real horror of this episode is the horror of toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
These dudes were
absolutely.
so afraid of being weak. Like, the general killed his own son to not look weak in front of other people. And the son went to college and joined the military to not look weak in front of his dad. And it's this whole thing, like, we're all guys here. I think every one of us can go, yeah, I've been there. Like, I can relate. I've tried to join in a conversation about football when I don't know shit about football, just so that none of the guys looked at me like, oh, you don't know anything about football? Yeah, no, It felt very real, and a very real thing that even outside of war, I think a lot of people can relate to. Both the father-son thing and just the be a man, war. What is it good for? To be a man. That's what it's good for. Show your stuff. And
You have emotion? How dare you?
Yeah.
Do you have empathy?
Well, and like
Right.
as far as those expectations, you mentioned at the end, he doesn't take the cigarette and then he takes a drink and kind of toasts to the men. But then when he falls dead in the ditch, like he drops the flask and you can see it's a gift from his dad that says like, let courage be thy name. So like this has definitely been a theme in their relationship way before this incident.
Right.
Yeah, it was kind of like, you've seen those families, right, where the whole family is military, and it's always a person that breaks that chain that's kind of shunned by the family almost, right? Because it's almost like, all right, everyone else is military. Why aren't you? It's, well, I want to go a different path. And like Jody said, that's that toxic masculinity thing. Well, I was military. Your grandfather's military. My son's military. You're going to be military too, or you're going to be, that's how you're going to toughen up. And it's
Get with the program,
yeah,
kind of thing. Yeah.
It just sucks.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna hop in. I've like I said, this is my all-time favorite Tales from the Crypt episode. It's not the prototypical episode. So if I were to tell someone to go watch a Tales from the Crypt episode, this probably isn't the first one I tell them to watch. There's much more typical Tales from the Crypt episode, but this one, just the scope of it. Again, it's twice as long as any other episode, but feels like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it just flies by.
It just flies by. The opening scene is just so well done, and there's probably more actors or stuntmen who are actors. But I'm saying is there's more people in that opening scene than I think the rest of the entire season. Like that, just to give an idea of the scope. Because usually these are like 3-4 people. Here you have like 100 guys running around. And this is one I'd love to see remastered, because there's a lot of blood, but because the colors are kind of muted, you don't really see the redness of the blood. So I'd love to see some of the prosthetic and special effects score work in like really vivid color. I think that'd be really cool. And yeah, it's just heartbreaking. The entire scene during the execution, the father doesn't say a word. It's just he's completely silent. You've got that tense drum roll going in the background, and then it stops. There's silence, and then he gives them. There's just that one look, and you just know everything. From when he just looks away, and it just conveys so much without saying anything. It's just a heart-wrenching scene, because I remember watching this one very specifically as a kid, totally into it, and then that happens like, oh, it was like one of those oh shit moments. It's just really affecting. I could watch this episode over and over. And again, there's still funny parts like with the shoes, and then again, Lance Henriksen holding in his guts with his helmet. So just to do a talent rundown, this is directed by Robert Zemeckis, one of the executive producers, Romancing the Stone, Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Forrest Gump, Castaway, all those great movies. Kirk Douglas. Do you guys ever see the 20,000 Under the Leagues movie he did like back in the 60s or 50s?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was such a cool movie. And then of course he did Spartacus and a bunch of other movies. Eric Douglas, he did a movie called Tomboy, Student Confidential. He was in The Golden Child, which I need to revisit that movie. And then again, you have Lance Henriksen, like just chewing scenery as Sergeant Ripper.
Name.
His death scene is just fantastic.
So
Which one? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
He gets through that full hard boiled, like,
Yeah.
I'm a military man.
But I'm gonna call him on that last gasp there at the end.
Yeah, it was a little much, but he earned it in my eyes.
Yeah, that's fair.
So he was in Aliens, Pumpkinhead, Near Dark, the Millennium TV series. He's also in Tales from the Crypt Cutting Cards, which is another fantastic episode. Like,
oh yeah,
if I could go back and do Tales from the Crypt, I want Lance Henriksen and William Sadler just going at it in every episode.
Yeah, okay, I'm down.
Sure.
Or I want them to do a team up series or something. I think that'd be amazing. And then of course you have Dan Aykroyd as in like the least comedic role of his entire career. Like he's just so straight pan, and he's usually, that's kind of his comic thing. He's usually saying or doing something ridiculous in a deadpan manner. But here he's just a kind of a nothing character, just kind of standing there, just replying or reacting to something someone else says.
I was waiting for him to bust out a decanter of Crystal Skull vodka.
Yeah,
There you
exactly.
go. Just to sell.
Mention aliens.
So again, you bring in Robert Zemeckis, you got like an A-level cast, and you give them enough money to do, you know, a spectacular scenery. One thing I will say is that the scene where Martin, the lieutenant, is in the foxhole and he sees the Germans and he's too afraid to blow the whistle. I was kind of like, come on, man, just all you gotta do is blow the whistle. They can't tell exactly where you are.
Yeah.
And then he lies about it. So I kind of feel like it's not his fault, but I feel like there was a
Didn't
little
have
bit.
to lie about it, right?
But you know what, though, fear gets people all kinds of ways. I'll say this.
Yeah.
I do jujitsu, obviously. I talk about it all the fucking time. But I've had cops. I've rolled with cops that when you get on top of them, they just panic and freak out and don't know how to do anything. You're telling them, hey, breathe, and they don't know how to breathe because they're in a moment of panic they haven't been in before, which is terrifying that police officers are out there and they're like this. But that's a whole other story. But so I get it. Like, I think he was just stricken by fear, and he was, again, like you said, just blow the whistle. It's really easy to say, but imagine you're out there in that field, afraid for your life, and it becomes a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, I'm kind of conflicted on it.
And then
I do like how this episode kind of plays with our sympathies,
Mhm.
because at first when we meet him, he's like hiding out drinking, and you're like, oh, this piece of shit, you know, like everyone else is out there fighting and dying, and he's just hanging out. But then by the end, I'm like fully on board with him. Like, I'm like, this guy never wanted to be here. He got forced into this. So like, I just like the way it shifts things back and forth so much.
Right. I mean,
Definitely.
yeah. And again, and that's my point. It's easy as the viewer to be like, just do it. But it's just, you just can't. And that's, you know, the
I feel
shitty
like
situation that he's forced into.
And I feel like he kind of had to double down on the lying because, like, you know, one of the themes of Tales from the Crypt is like everybody kind of gets what they deserve. And like, I think it would have been hard for them to kill him off if he didn't do something wrong.
Right.
And like, you know, I would have lied in that situation too, probably. But
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that he's getting punished for.
I guess that's his sin, and obviously doesn't deserve to die because of it.
Right.
And going back to Jody talking about toxic masculinity, I think he was also afraid to tell his father or have his father know that he was too afraid to blow the whistle. That was probably weighing on him too. Like, I can't have my father know that I was too afraid to do something. So I'm going to try to make myself sound like a hero in front of my dad.
Yeah.
Also, we're looking at
Trying to
this 30 years after this episode came out. I'm really curious when it came out, how many people are like, oh yeah, the father really got him. Father showed him and his men.
Yeah.
I'm curious what the general reaction was for people when they first saw this.
I mean, that's kind of the cool thing about horror, right? And the cool thing about art is that we can look at it now with a 2022 lens and pull different things out of it. But I think you're right. It'd be kind of cool to find some reviews maybe from that era and see what people thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like the people behind the show were in on it, but I'm curious how many people were cheering for the father. You know,
There definitely were a few. I can guarantee you that. I'm sure.
like, I mean, how many people actually were in I guess I don't think anyone was in World War One. That would still be alive then, but World War II guys were like, oh, come on.
I don't know. I think you'd probably find less military people who actually saw violence than you would have like my stepdad who was in the Navy for 2 years because he had to because of a drug offense. He sucks. It's fine. But like I guarantee you he was rooting. He thought Michael Douglas was in the right. I guarantee you he did.
Right. But again, this is just top tier. This is one of those episodes that when I started this podcast, I was like, I can't wait to do this and watch it and everything. And here we are, and it's glorious.
Yeah, I know that we said that Aykroyd was kind of a nothing character, but I would have liked to see more serious Aykroyd. I think just a few more. I think we were robbed a little bit of that. I think he could have pulled something off. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I mean,
he does well in the part, but they didn't give him much to work with, and he stands out, in the scenes he's in. But yeah, I feel like in most cases this would have been like basically an extra, and so it's kind of strange that they were like, let's get Dan Aykroyd to play this guy.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is whenever you look on IMDb at these things, there's always kind of the A-list cast, the A cast, and then as they're being listed, then there's John Kassir as the voice of the Crypt Keeper. And then there's kind of the B list, the kind of the background. They might have one line or just like do an action or something in the background. And I looked up all the background people, and they're all just like basically the stunt people that I think were in like the opening scene, like the priest. us walking him out. He's a stunt guy. So I was just curious if they really had anything, but you have to have Dan Aykroyd as like the fourth listed person is like amazing for a Tales from the Crypt episode.
Yeah, the only other time I can really remember like a more serious Dan Aykroyd outside of this is probably My Girl,
Yeah.
which was, we're talking about men being emotional. I can't watch that movie.
or maybe
bees.
Yeah.
I mean, he was pretty serious as what Ray Zelinsky and Tommy Boy.
Sure.
Oh
sure.
yeah. As long as we don't, but we're not allowed to talk about Nothing But Trouble because
I was going to say, Jason, we can't talk about Dan Aykroyd without mentioning Nothing But Trouble.
I fucking hate that movie.
His directorial debut. This is his vision, man.
Oh my god.
It still blows my mind that Tupac Shakur was in that movie.
Yes. All right, Jody, why don't you give us a comic comparison?
Yeah, so like we said earlier, this is from Shock Suspense Stories #1, November 1951. It's the second story in the Shock Suspense Stories comic as a whole. Script by Bill Gaines and Al Feldstein, art by Jack Davis. I feel like I say that a lot because they're kind of the A-team for these episodes or these issues. It's really the same story with all the same beats, but what I found really interesting in the comic is the focus is fully on the general. Like he's the main character of the comic, not the lieutenant. And so it's about him. Like we don't see the scene where he doesn't blow the whistle. We just see him run back and tell his dad, hey, I fought my way out. And then the guy comes in and says, no, he didn't. So the focus is fully on the general. He is the character I think we're supposed to sympathize with through this entire issue or segment. So like
Games seemed like a pretty liberal guy to a degree.
Yeah, but I still think it was seen
curious.
through his eyes.
Yeah.
I like Two-Fisted Tales that came later. There was war stories. Like that was the whole point of it, was kind of you're in the 1950s. So you had like all these men's magazines that were like army magazines and magazines about exploration. And it was all like this whole like manly comics and stuff like that. And so that's what I think they were going for with some of that. I really do think you were supposed to be on his side through this, because the lieutenant in the comic, the word sob is written into his dialogue about every time he talks. So he's crying all the time. He's deserting his men. And the whole time, this guy, I got to deal with this son. My son is such a baby. And so like at the end, he's smirking, like he is cold as ice. Like we don't have this like heart to heart. He goes and talks to his son and says, I'm going to do this thing with the blanks. But his final words to his son before he walks out are, I don't know what's going to happen to you. And frankly, I don't care. Maybe someday we'll meet again. Goodbye, Martin. All with exclamation points after every sentence. And so, he's cold as ice. He smirks to the death of his son. It's really kind of weird, honestly, because like I said, in a lot of ways, these EC comics were very progressive about things like race and gender, and like they had a lot going on. But I think that like be a man mentality was very present. I mean, we're talking 1951. Like you got a crew cut, dude, or shape up or join the army.
And a good point too, kind of back then, it wasn't just men that had that mentality of the be a man mentality. It was everybody. It was society had that whole mentality. Women too, right? It was one of those things where, so it was reinforced by every facet of society. So I could definitely, as liberal as William Gaines is, I can still see this being a sticking point, which would make sense.
I just thought it was odd that the focus was on him, because that completely changes the feel of the whole thing. Like if the focus is on him, your sympathy is with him.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a bastard, but he's a bastard. You understand?
But then we talk about how different it is, looking at this through a 2022 lens. And I mean, but look at how Zemeckis changed it, looking at it through a 1991 lens, even. And that's kind of really a cool point.
Yeah, 40 years later, they softened the general quite a bit and made him seem more sympathetic. They definitely made Martin more sympathetic. because he literally in the comic is a crybaby like the entire time. He cries through every scene he's in, and he's annoying to read about. And you start feeling like anti him reading the comic because he's so just aggravating to witness anything he does.
Well, yeah, even the lines on his face, the way he's drawn, he's kind of like repugnant.
Yeah, you're supposed to look down on him.
Yeah, where the dad just looks tired. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm tired of this kid.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah. So I was reading, when I read it, I was looking to see how they would handle that moment at the end right before he shoots him and he looks away, to see how they would do that in the comic format. And it's not there at all.
No, there's instead of having to like look away, the dad smirks right before the fire. Like he's getting away with his plot, and he's like, gotcha.
Yeah. So again, I've talked to Al Katz and Gil Adler about. I like to talk to Alan, and he said that they handed it to two writers and they couldn't get it right. And then him and Gil took over and rewrote it. So I'm curious who flipped the focus. I am going to have a conversation with Alan Katz and Gil Adler, hopefully next couple days, and we'll post that conversation after this episode comes out, so we can hopefully get some more clarification from them. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I just
Okay,
like this
good.
episode. Yeah, it's just a really good episode.
Yeah.
Well, you said this probably would be the first first episode you show to someone who's new to Tales from the Crypt, but I kind of think this is one of those episodes you could show people who maybe aren't into Tales from the Crypt, because like you said, it's so different. I think this on its own, outside of the Tales from the Crypt bubble, it could stand on its own 2 feet and still, I think a lot of people would still like it.
Yeah,
I totally agree. If I was going to show someone what the typical Tales from the Crypt is.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. I get it 100%. You're right. But I do think though, like we actually have people that I know listen to our podcast that have never seen an episode of Tales from the Crypt. And I think because maybe they don't like the schlockiness of it,
Right.
but this would be still a good episode. I think everyone could watch and pull something out of.
Yeah, absolutely.
This would definitely be a good onboarding for those who aren't into like the kind of the not comic, well, I guess
Sleazier.
comic, yeah, sleazier. There you go. That's a
Yeah.
better word. The better sleazier horror of the other episodes.
This episode is a way different contrast from last week. Let's put it that way.
Yes, it's about as far as you could possibly get.
yes.
All right, so we do a ranking from 0 to 5, 5 being the best. You can do half points. Let's start with Mondo.
I want to make a joke and be like 1, obviously. No, this is a 5 by far. Like it's just a great episode, a great piece of art. I'll say I loved it.
Jody.
Yeah, I'm going 5 too. This is top tier.
Good. I also have to kick you guys off the show. All right, Tony.
I almost spit beer all over my computer there. So
Yeah, I mean,
You don't have to give it a 5. It's okay.
It's fine. It's fine.
I won't kick you out of the chat.
yeah, if you don't give it a 5 though, you can never be on again. But
Okay.
no pressure.
I mean, I would say, like we were saying, like as a standalone piece of media, it is a 5. If like comparing it against the rest of Tales from the Crypt, I might dock it like a half point, just saying that it's like it doesn't feel like a Tales from the Crypt episode, but I mean, it's still absolutely something you should seek out if you've not seen it.
No, I respect that. I like that.
Yeah, no, I can dig that.
So at the risk of being called yellow, sorry, I'm not that guy. But yeah, so for those of you who aren't gorehounds, obviously it's a 5, right? For those of you who want a little bit more blood and guts and the sleaze, I'll give it a 4 still.
So 5's all around.
There's nothing wrong with a 4 though.
Yeah.
A 4 means it's awesome. Like it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more of the 3 territory, 3.5. No, this is again like 5 with a star plus.
Yeah.
This is like, again, if not the all-time best, top 3 easily.
But I can definitely see what Eric's saying here, though, because if I'm sitting down to watch Tales from the Crypt in 1991, I'm like, all right, time for some blood and guts, some jokes, some boobs. We're gonna have a good time. And then it's like, oh shit, war epic.
If
All right,
it wasn't for
I
that,
feel sad now.
if it wasn't for that twist and just how well it's done, I could see someone, if there wasn't that twist, I could see someone saying this really isn't Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
But at the last second, it pulls out the rug from you.
Oh, yeah,
it's that's Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, that twist absolutely makes the episode.
And again, thinking about a real life father and son acting duo and all the connotations that has, it's just the perfect concoction. So, all right, let's move on to Mondo with our song of the day.
All right, I have to do two because two popped in my head right away. One is I'm not going to get into the background of Motorhead. Hopefully everybody knows Motorhead. And Motorhead, they had a record called 1916, which came out in I think 1990 or 91. But on that song, they had a track called 1916, which is essentially about a soldier in World War One. It's the last track on the record. The whole record, and what's kind of interesting, the whole record is not anything about the war. It's not like a concept album or anything. The last song is called 1916, and it's about a soldier dying in World War One. And it's a very like sad, somber song. So everyone out there thinks Lemmy was just about like talking about how he's going to put his snake on you and stuff like that. He was actually a really great songwriter. I said that before. He's a great songwriter and just understood music. The last couple lines of that song is, I don't remember exactly, but it's something like the day's not even over, but 10,000 people are dead and nobody will remember our name. And that's how it is for a soldier. I don't think that's the exact line. The exact line's a little bit different, but it's a very somber song and just closes out a record. And it kind of shows it I think kind of fits in with the episode and just being that it's, they basically in the song, he's saying, I don't want to be here. I'm just here to die. I've watched my friends die. I'm dying too. And no one's going to remember my name because all I was is just a number somewhere in the annals of history. And the reason I'm picking two songs, that's my somber song. My second song is by a death metal band that I just discovered. Actually, I just discovered them last week. A band called Sculpture, because they put a new record out in 2022, and they're a German band that really focuses around that. They do war stories, but not really the glorification of war. But it's still more of an aggressive, angry song. Fits in with maybe the people that listen to metal that listen to our show. But they did a record in 2020 called Eisenzeit. Which roughly translates to Iron Age in German. And the song is Hell is a Field in France. And the album's all about World War One, all the bullshit that went on World War One. And it's interesting because whenever you research a metal band and they're from Germany, the first you have to type in is the name of the band and are they Nazis on Google to see if. And as a guy that loves black metal, when I find a new band, I'm like, fuck, is this band full of Nazis? So
I think you should do. I think we need a website. Are they Nazis?
I wouldn't doubt that there actually is something out there, but they ended up a band I just discovered because someone on Twitter recommended them to me, and they're a super aggressive death metal band that has like these beautiful harmonies sometimes that they'll break away to over the music, and it's just really fantastic in my opinion. I don't listen to a lot of death metal nowadays, but they kind of broke through that mold for me. So two songs: Motorhead, 1916, hit you right in the feels. It's a really good song to play at a bar. If you're ever like feel the mood is just too upbeat, or if some asshole played Santeria, then you can
listen here, you know.
hey, I'm cool if you like Sublime, but who the fuck pays $2 to hear Santeria at a bar?
Yeah, that's fair.
That and Bon Jovi, like what the fuck? Who wants to hear "Living on a Prayer" while they're trying to enjoy life? But if you want to bring that mood down, 1960 by Motorhead, and if you want some aggressive death metal, Hell is a Field in France by not Sculpture, which I have no fucking idea what that means because I googled it and Google just tells me I'm spelling it wrong. So that's all there is to it.
Nice, thank you, Mondo.
Got it.
All right, let's do some trivia, Jody.
All right. So Mondo, that first song that you mentioned, 1960, the description of it, you broke out some Shakespeare one week when we were talking, and like you really eloquently talked about Shakespeare and kind of blew my mind. So I'm remembering my English lit classes because there was a poem, I had to look up the name of it, called Dulce et Decorum Est, that was all about World War One, and it was the same. It was basically that same song, but like a poem written in 1917 about
wow.
how crappy it was to like walk around and be gassed and die, and there's no glory in war. It's all nonsense. So it's a great poem. I remember that making a big impact on me when I was in school.
Well, man, not to go over top of this, also a band that came out called 1914. And so unsurprisingly, all their stuff's about World War One. And the one thing I'll say is I love is a lot of these bands are not trying to glorify the war.
Yeah.
They're really trying to talk about the horrors of it. And I know metal gets looked down upon a lot about being like the meathead genre, but you know, like fucking Iron Maiden. Fucking Bruce Dickinson half the time is singing about Shakespeare and singing about like shit that really happens. The guy's a goddamn pilot.
And the Trooper. I was wondering if you're going with the Trooper.
Yeah, no, you can go that way too. I mean, or Run to the Hills. I mean, is 100% like talking about how, you know, we stole this fucking land. But I really love though, like when you can find pieces of art like that fit in with this, and it's just it hits you in the feels. And I'm not gonna lie, like this episode kind of did that to me. So.
Yeah,
I feel like there's something different about how we approach World War One and World War Two. Like World War Two is like the cool, like, oh yeah, we were fighting the Nazis. It was
hold on a second. There's nothing cool about World War Two, Jody.
No, I'm just talking about the way that we talk about it as a culture. Like World War Two was cool. World War One was just nasty, trudging through cold, wet places and dying. Like
We had
my great grandpa was no boy, so you know. He survived World War One and the Spanish flu at the same time. So
Eric,
now I
you say
sit
something?
in a chair and record.
No, I was saying in World War II we had the defined enemy versus World War One, where it's just basically a drunken brawl in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just swinging wildly at each other.
Right. But anyway, I'm supposed to be doing trivia right now, and I'm not doing trivia. I'm talking about other things. Trivia is very simple this time. Before Robert Zemeckis was brought on to direct this episode, the original director slated to direct this was Steven Spielberg. What you're talking about getting a big name for a Tales from the Crypt episode, 1991, you could not possibly get any bigger than Steven Spielberg.
I don't know how you would have time to do this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, later he made Saving Private Ryan, and I compared that opening scene to Saving Private Ryan. Like, he knows how to shoot these things. I remember having professors in college in my history classes who would be like, I feel like every incoming freshman needs to watch the first 10 minutes of Saving Private Ryan, because it would make every one of them convinced that war was not cool to be a part of.
When I was that came out in 96.
Yeah.
No,
90
I think it was 99.
Was it
Like
99?
It was late 90s, because I tried to get
okay.
into it on a date for some stupid reason. I couldn't get in because it was
Oh
R-rated.
man.
What a terrible date
We
movie.
should talk about that. Terrible date movies.
What a terrible date movie.
It was 98.
I have an amazing terrible date story, but so I saw that with my dad's friend Barney, and we went to go see it, and we saw it it was a special screening he got tickets to, because he worked for Sprint, which is a phone company out here that did all the landlines, and we went there, and they had invited a bunch of World War II veterans to come and be honored at that screening.
Oh wow.
Most of them walked out in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of them apparently was interviewed afterwards, and I don't remember this, but I was told this. He told me this, that afterwards on the news, and basically said, I already went through this once. I don't need to go through this a second time right now.
Yeah.
And like it really hit them really hard when they saw that, like, oh, fuck this, and had to walk out of it, which is crazy, because if people out there haven't seen it, those first few minutes are intense.
Well, if anyone has this idea that, like, you know, war is like, you know, honorable and, you know, very cool to be a part of, go watch the first 10 minutes. It's just screaming and blood and crying, and it's awful. It's terrible, but it's so good. Like, it's a good movie, but it's a terrible thing to experience. So anyway, Spielberg could have directed this. I am off in so many directions.
We always get there.
All right, that moves us on to our dad advice. Mondo, you had some submissions online to share with us.
I do, but you want a real fast, funny date story?
Oh, please.
Okay, so when I was a 16-year-old man, I used to drive a white Econoline van with no windows.
Okay.
Hey, that's what I bought. That's what I drove when my wife met me, and she still married me. So that's where we're at right now.
No judgment.
Hey, But if some motherfucker came to my house to put my kid up in that, we're gonna have a conversation. Like, it's gonna
Open the back. Let me see inside.
I mean, I had long hair too, cut off jeans, like wearing a metal tank top. So yeah, I have no idea like how that works.
Candy back here. What's
The best part is the doors didn't open from the inside. You had to roll the window down to open the door.
Of course.
So if you were in the back and there was a gate in the front and the back, because in case you ever got in an accident with music equipment in the back, you don't want it to kill you. So if you were in the back of that van, you just couldn't get out.
It was just a cage, right?
Basically,
Cage and wheels.
And there was a bed back there too. So none of this is okay. So I went to go see the Blair Witch Project, and I was 16. I just got my license like a few months prior, and one of the girls lived down the street from me, wanted to go see it. So I'm like, yeah, I'll take you down there. You know, we did kind of had a thing going. No, nothing crazy. Just, you know, young tension going. So we went to go see the movie. You know, movie was scary as fuck, obviously. I mean, some people probably hate the movie, but it was scary. In 99, that was a shit.
Yeah.
And so we're leaving the movie, and it's like 10 o'clock at night on a Friday. So I go over, and she lived literally like maybe a 2-minute walk from my house. So I go to drop her off, and she's about to get on my van, and she goes, so yeah, my parents and my brother aren't home. It's gonna be really scary being at home by myself. So I'm like, well, that sucks. I hope they get home soon. Drop her off.
I've been there, done that. So.
Go back to my house, and I vividly remember, I think I was playing Chrono Trigger at the time, my Super Nintendo, just chilling. I'm like, fuck. 16-year-old Mondo was smooth as shit.
Yep.
Oh my god.
So that's my my terrible day story. But I feel like at least I had a chance that I just didn't see, which might be even worse. Whereas Jody, if you took that date to go see Saving Private Ryan,
that was the end of our night.
There's zero chance.
That night is not going well.
She might have called her parents to come pick her up at that point. Like,
yeah.
All right. I have two questions, and one is from someone, a great follower of ours, TJ Howard Gentleman. He's asking our favorite episode from each season and our favorite cameo. I'm going to say that's another one. Let's hold on to till we finish all seasons, because I don't remember all of them. I don't want to answer now and be like, fuck, I remember this guy who showed up. But he brought up Iggy Pop specifically, which was a really cool cameo to see in the episode where with Katie Seagal. Second question from a good friend, Dr. Natalie, who was on our Demon Night podcast, a Demon Night episode. Are we ever going to cover perversions of science? First of all,
that was the other spinoff, right?
I didn't even know. I never even heard of it, so I had to look it up. I'm like, this actually looks pretty cool.
It's a wild world, man.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say maybe. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but maybe when we're done, I could totally see us doing that.
I mean, I figured this could take us about 2 years to go through this whole thing. We're almost we're coming around to the end of the first year. There's 90 episodes. We're on episode 40, so we're almost halfway there. Who the hell knows what we're gonna do next?
So here's what I'm gonna say: if we don't hate each other in a year, I'm just gonna say yes right now, and then we'll go because no one's gonna remember my answer unless I get a text unless I get a text in a year from Natalie. It's like, when does this start?
How many of them were there? Do we know?
It was only like 1 or 2 years. I think only like 15, 20 episodes or something like that. Maybe. And just judging by some of the cast, I just was thumbing through IMDb and some of the cast and some of the crew behind it. There's some heavy hitters there. It looks like it might be something fun.
All right.
Yeah, it was basically the sci-fi version of Tales from the Crypt that they were going for there.
Right.
Kind of like they were trying to do with Two-Fisted Tales, but they did the sci-fi route. I can't believe while we talked about the Two-Fisted Tales show, we never mentioned that William Sadler was supposed to do the Crypt Keeper type role. He was like a army guy.
There's clips on YouTube you can find of tests that they did.
Eric, what was that? I'm sorry.
I was going to say, whenever you all do perversions of science, whenever you get to episode 4, call me in, or call me and Anthony in.
Okay.
It's not
a Frankenstein episode.
Oh. No, it's not that, but it's Jeffrey Combs.
Oh shit. Okay.
So
yeah.
Here's an important question. Do you guys get pissed when people call the monster Frankenstein?
No, he is the Frankenstein. Absolutely, he's a son.
We've had a lot of conversations about it. Yeah.
Hold on a second. I've never heard anyone say that. He is the son of Frankenstein, therefore he is a Frankenstein. That's gonna fuck me up because I always give people shit over that. And I always love the scene in the Monster Squad where they where they initiate the guy by asking him that question.
Mm-hmm.
And now my
monster.
Yeah. Now my mind's all fucked up. Damn it.
Sorry,
All right.
man.
Well, remind us in a year. And
All right, fair enough.
and we'll figure this out because I was looking at it. That might be something cool to do. Because my original thought was when we're done with this, we do Freddy's Nightmares. After watching a few episodes, I'm like,
See, that's what I thought.
I don't know.
I would do like top 5 episodes or top 3 episodes or something like that. Maybe I don't know. Who the hell knows?
No, I think there's enough fodder in there to where we can still have fun with it.
But yeah,
you just don't want to watch them, and I respect that.
Well, that goes back
Now
to
you've also got
Go ahead.
you've got to look at the game show and the cartoon.
Yeah, exactly.
No. I don't know if I can do that week in, week out.
The cartoon would probably be super fun actually, because our friend from CryptTube, he's posted a lot of the cartoons on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Every now and again, that'll pop up after I watch an episode, and I'll just sit there and watch it because they're generally pretty fun.
Pretty fun. I just how much is there really to talk about for a full episode? We'll see.
I'm
not saying no to anything right now. Who knows?
I mean, there are fucking episodes that we do where we talk 10 minutes about the episode and 40 minutes about Jason's fetishes. So
Yeah,
it's fun.
Going back though to the whole Frankenstein, son of Frankenstein. I one of the things that really opened my eyes is when you guys had a discussion about Bride of Frankenstein, about who actually is the Bride of Frankenstein. Is it Elsa? What's her last name?
Lanchester.
Is that the Bride of Frankenstein? Is it Dr. Frankenstein's wife? Is it Dr. Pretorius? Like, there's it's a real big like triple entendre almost.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And I rewatched Bride of Frankenstein. I had a lot more fun with it after you guys kind of peeled back some of those layers that I never really thought too much about.
Yeah, I mean it's obviously a classic for a reason.
I have Frankenstein in my brain now, and I was thinking, like, man, even one of my favorite Vincent Price films is The Abominable Dr. Phibes, and it's kind of a Frankenstein story. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, as you start like kind of peeling back the layers of like what makes a Frankenstein movie, there's like we were talking about it, and it's like, there's so many mad scientist type movies, and I don't think they're all Frankenstein. Like, I wouldn't call like Invisible Man a Frankenstein story,
Right?
But like, like Dr. Moreau, I mean, it's like a guy creating life. It's obviously a variation, but like, I mean, if you've got a scientist who's like playing with what life means in some way, I mean, I think it all comes from that Mary Shelley story.
Definitely. That's super cool. I like that.
Do you guys have, like, now that you've been watching them and looking at them through the critical lens, like a favorite? Has your favorite one changed? Like your go-to Frankenstein changed? Is it like reinforced?
I mean, like I was saying earlier, like that Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the Kenneth Branagh one has definitely like moved up in my esteem, like having watched it for this.
Yeah, I used to think it sucked. And that's like,
I kind of thought it was like kind of slow and boring, but like it really, really drew me in this time. Like there's a scene where Dr. Frankenstein and the monster meet in this like ice cave, and they have this really long sort of philosophical conversation about like the nature of souls and like, you created me and what does this mean, and like it really like kind of tore me up this time, and I did not remember it really having any kind of effect on me the last time I watched it.
Damn.
Also, you'll never look at the collection of amniotic fluid the exact same after seeing that.
All right, here's a question for you guys. If you were to cast a new Frankenstein movie, who would you want to direct, and who would you have play the monster in Dr. Frankenstein?
Damn.
Holy shit. We could probably do a whole episode on that.
First thing comes to your head.
I was actually thinking recently, so like a month or two ago, Mike Flanagan said something about that he would be interested in doing Frankenstein, man. I would love to see what he would. And I mean, he already has kind of like a stock cast, but like I could really see like Raoul Coley as the doctor. Like I think he would kind of add a sort of different variation. And he's the sheriff from Midnight Mass. And then Hamish Linklater, who is the priest from Midnight Mass, I think could be the monster in a really interesting way.
So I think part of what you're saying is we all want more Midnight Mass, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that series to go on way longer.
I still haven't watched it. I watched the Haunting of Bly Manor. I watched a Haunting of Hill House. It's on my extensive list that gets bigger and bigger every fucking week.
Yeah.
Eric.
yeah. So I think I'd like to see a take from Jordan Peele as
Ooh,
the
okay.
director. I would need more time because I'm kind of like ADHD. I need, to sit down and piece everything together. I'm not sure who I'd exactly want as the monster. Well, I think I would like to see a reunion of Key and Peele.
That'd be,
I think he could do it.
I think he's actually an underrated actor. He's fantastic in everything I've seen him in.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to think of who I would want to be the doctor, though. Let me think about this. I'm gonna go through like a couple. Like I have like a brain index.
Here, I got one for you. For doing Jordan Peele, Winston Duke.
Yes, actually, that's exactly who I was thinking about. Winston
Yeah.
Duke. Hell yes.
I think
Come
I think he's extremely underrated. I think he'd be
Right.
amazing in that
yeah.
role.
As a doctor,
He was
Frank
great in
Kennedy.
Us.
Yeah, no, I loved him in Us. He was so funny.
Yep. So that's what I'm thinking.
I like it.
Jordy Mondo, do you have on the post?
I do. I'd obviously want it directed by Rob Zombie. The doctor would obviously be William Forsythe, and the monster would obviously be Sherry Moon Zombie. Done.
Okay, no. All the roles by Sherry Moon Zombie.
What's Bill Moseley doing right now?
Realistically, I probably, you know what? I would probably say Del Toro. I think would do a great fan,
Yeah.
and put Ron Perlman in as a monster.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay.
That'd be-
All right.
I think he'd be great. And the doctor, that's a tough one for me. I know someone is a doctor, so maybe the doctor of thugonomics, John Cena. Is that a Frankenstein? The doctor, man, I don't, actually think it would be a great doctor because I think Nicolas Cage would be a fantastic doctor, just playing it over the top and kind of like out of his mind and kind of going crazy. I'm gonna go Del Toro, Nicolas Cage, and Ron Perlman.
Yeah, I'm thinking if you're going Del Toro, I want to see Michael Shannon as the doctor.
Oh, that's a good one. Very good one.
That's a really good one.
An intense doctor.
Yeah, that'd be good too. That'd be really good. I want to see a dynamic on set though between Del Toro and Nicolas Cage. I think that's more what I want to see, and the behind the scenes stories.
Yeah. How many fights did they have?
Jordy.
No, I don't have anyone. Like I said, Michael Shannon would be a really cool doctor. I do like that idea. Director. Trying to think of something kind of left field that would still be interesting.
There's Tony.
I disappeared earlier, so that's what happens. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna go Ty West because I really enjoyed X just recently, and also everything else he's made. So I could definitely see Ty West going with the. I do like the expression on Anthony's face while I'm talking about Ty West, because when I talk about Ty West, I get two expressions, either like "oh yeah" or great. But yeah, no, I'd like to see his take on it. It would be slow, and I know it would be slow and moody. I don't know who for the monster though. I don't know who would make a good Ty West monster, because he managed to make. No, I'm not going to say. It'd be a spoiler, but I can't say who the monster is in X. But no, I do think he'd take a cool tack on it though, for sure.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, the monster wouldn't be reanimated until the third act, but still, it'd be okay.
Right.
the last flame would be the hand twitch.
Yeah, I do love Ty West. I joke about
that's
that.
the thing. Like I accept that criticism of every Ty West movie, that nothing happens to the end, but the end is so good, and the payoff. I feel like the lead up is always at least something I want to watch. We've talked about it, Jody. Like, as much as I'll make fun of it, I get why when people talk shit about Ty West. Yeah, I still love his movie. So yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Based on one scene in X, Kid Cudi could play the Frankenstein's monster.
I mean, he pretty much does.
One in shadow scene in X.
Like that just is the monster. Like,
Yes.
It is the monster.
Okay. Here's mine, and then we'll wrap up. Director. I just gotta go with
it. Igor couldn't find a brain worth of shit, but he found the biggest dick possible.
Oh my god. Oh my gosh.
I mean, all right, but just think about logically, right? Like,
Okay.
if you have this monster made of all these giant parts, I get to put a tiny little dick on the monster.
That's literally a plot point.
Hilarious.
In Young Frankenstein.
Yeah, exactly. You're right.
Sponsor.
All right, Jason.
Okay, here's my director is James Wan.
Oh, okay.
He already did Invisible Man. We can even make this a shared universe if you really want. My doctor would be Tilda Swinton.
Ooh, I like you going. Yeah, I like
and
that.
That isn't to be like trendy gender swap or something. No, I think that.
No, but I think she'd actually be
good.
great.
Yeah.
I think she'd be great, and I think it'd be a little bit different.
At first, I thought Benedict Cumberbatch, but he's already done it, hasn't he? Like in the play.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
There was like a British play where it was him and Johnny Lee Mill, the guy who plays Sherlock on the American show, and they switch back and forth every night.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. So yeah, I'll go Tilda Swinton. My monster would be Jonathan Goff.
Okay,
Have you guys ever seen Mindhunter?
I've seen Mindhunter.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's the detective, or Hamilton.
And now that we've talked more about it, can I change my monster?
Sure.
William Dafoe and his weird
Ooh.
penis.
You have all the weird penises. Get Liam Neeson, get William Dafoe, and get
Kid Cudi.
who else?
Jason, you seem to be the expert on weird penises in Hollywood. So,
Well, you live in LA, you just are surrounded by weird penises.
what a great name for a podcast, The Weird Penises of Hollywood, starring Jason.
Jesus. I think we got a t-shirt in the making. I expect key art by the end of the night.
You joke, but Jody,
I know.
Jody could whip it out if he needed to.
I bet he could.
Hi, whip it out.
All right. I think we should wrap this up.
It's for the best, really.
Eric and Anthony, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people follow you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, sir.
You can find us on all the the various podcatchers. We're the Frankencast. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at the Frankencast.
Yep, and we upload to YouTube every Friday as well. So we're all those places.
Awesome. Okay, well, next week we will be reviewing season 4, episode 1. It's really weird because the second season was like 18 episodes or something like that. So like that one seemed to go so long, and all these other ones are like zooming by. So we're gonna kick off season 4, episode 1, None But the Lonely Heart. We appreciate everyone for listening. We'd really appreciate it if you would give us a rating and review on iTunes and a rating on Spotify. And with that, we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Goodbye.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.